Hey guys, so this week we're going to keep going with the quadratic formula, but there's one tiny thing that we need to add, and that is making sure that it equals 0 before you do anything with the quadratic formula. So if you have not written down the quadratic formula, this is it. I strongly suggest you write it down somewhere to have it. It's a 2, not a z. It's kind of like a z, but it's supposed to be a 2. Okay, so the first questions are asking about the discriminant, which is just the part under the square root. So before I can do that, I have to make it equal 0. Kind of think of it like when we were using it with regular equations like y equals to find an x-intercept, which is what the quadratic formula is doing. It is the same as plugging in 0 for y. So I cannot use it unless it equals 0. So here I've got, neither side of the equal sign is 0. So to get rid of this negative 8a, to make this side 0, I'm going to add 8a to both sides. Now you got to be careful because you can only combine things if they're like terms. So the squared stays by itself because a squared and a are two different things. So I'm going to bring down negative 8a squared. Then I'm going to do the 8a. Just bring down the minus 2. So now it equals 0. So now I can do the quadratic formula stuff. So with the discriminant, I just want to do b squared minus 4ac. So make sure everything's in order with the squared, then the variable, then the number by itself. Okay. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. So that ends up being 64 minus 64, which is 0. And if you remember, when the discriminant is 0, that means that you have one real solution or one x-intercept. Okay. So if you didn't write down that table, I suggest you go back and watch the first video and then write down the stuff from that table. Okay. So next, got this one. I recommend drawing a line down the equal sign just to keep yourself organized because you're just trying to make one side of the equal sign equal 0. So to get rid of a positive 2, I'm going to subtract 2. I'm going to go ahead and put it with the other 2 because they're both constants, meaning numbers by themselves. Those are going to get added together. Then to get rid of a minus 4n, I'm going to add 4n to both sides. Because remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side to keep the equation balanced. Okay. So the negative 2n squared comes down because it's the only n squared. The 4n comes down because it's the only n. And then the two numbers get added together. So now that it equals 0, I can do the discriminant. So I've got 4 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 4, which is going to be 16 minus 32, which is going to give me negative 16. If you remember, when you have a negative discriminant, it means that you have two imaginary solutions which don't show up on a graph. So that would be 0 x-intercepts. Okay. Cool. So when we're doing the quadratic formula, it's the same thing that we were doing before. It's just that we're going to do the whole thing now, basically. So listen to my nose. It's acting up. So I want to make it equal 0 first, okay? Because if it already equals 0, you're good to go. But if it doesn't equal 0, you have to do that first. So I'm going to draw a line down because I'm going to get rid of everything on the right side. So I'm going to subtract 6b. And then I'll bring down the v squared because it's the only v squared. I'll bring down the negative 6v because it's the only v, and bring down the 8 because it's the only number. So I didn't have any like terms to combine. I just had to put everything in order. And now I've got a, b, and c. So I can do the discriminant. So I've got b squared so that's going to be 36 minus 32, which is 4. And then the rest of the quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of 4, whatever I got there, over 2 times whatever a is. So I'm going to go over to the calculator. And I'm going to hit divided by. Go ahead and do that first. So negative 6, which is going to turn into just positive 6. Remember, one time with plus. I'm going to hit enter. So one of my answers is 4. So I've got x equals 4. Then I'm going to go back and change that plus to a minus. I'm going to get 2. So got x equals 4 and x equals 2. Those are my 2 answers. Okay. And remember, if you're using a graphing calculator to get the big fraction thing, you do alpha y equals enter. So I'm just going to do one more because this is a video, and if you get confused, you can just rewind it, watch it again, pause it, all that good stuff. It's a great thing about videos. All right, so I'm going to draw a line down the equal sign because I need the entire equation to equal 0. So to get rid of a positive 34, I'm going to subtract 34 on both sides. And then to get rid of a minus 10r squared, I'm going to add 10r squared. So these two are like terms. So I'm going to actually add those together. So 10r squared minus 4r squared is 6r squared. Then this is the only r term. So I'm just going to bring that straight down. And then this is the only number by itself. So I'm just going to bring that one down. Those both cancel out, so it equals 0. So now I can do the quadratic formula. Before, you cannot do the quadratic formula unless your equation equals 0. So I'm going to start with the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4 times a times c, which I don't know, guys. I'm not doing that in my head. C20. Okay, 841. So now I'm going to do the rest of the quadratic formula. It'll be the opposite of b, so negative 5, which is just going to turn into positive 5, plus or minus the square root of 841 over 2 times 6. So I'm going to go over to the calculator. And let's see, go ahead and hit divide first so I get the big fraction. Negative 5. First time is just going to be plus. Square root of 841. And 2 times 6. So I get 17/6. So 17/6. Then, if I change my plus to a minus, -2. That's my answer. Okay. So there you go. The only new thing is making it equal 0. Okay. So hopefully we'll see you guys at the live meet this week. And yeah. Have a good whatever day you're watching this.